You're also involved in some other local activist groups dealing with other issues concerning Nairn.
Yes, one of the frustrations with the community councils is they aren't actually able to do that much. So we took a very conscious decision around NICE, and you know the background of NICE as well as I do, that what we were trying to do was set up a social enterprise company which allowed us to do things that community councils couldn't do, and also importantly things that neither the local authority or the health board can do. So NICE is there as an enabling organisation. It's there to help, but it's also there quite specifically to be able to run different companies and to start to bring real employment back to Nairn.
What's your vision for Nairn in the future?
I start off sounding a bit pessimistic. I firmly believe that this financial crisis is not over, that we're just coming to terms with how much debt. And the figures I was reading over the weekend is that Britain, in terms of percentage of GDP across national product, is higher in debt than anywhere else, and that includes the Spains and the Cypruses and the Portugals and all the countries that people are kind of mocking in the EU. So we need to sort that out. I firmly believe that with a Westminster government and then a Scottish government and then a local planning, local capacity, local community, we've got too many layers of government and too many people in middle and upper management posts in all sorts of layers all the way up to Brussels. So if we are genuinely going for maximum devolution, which I think is the most likely outcome of whatever happens in the referendum, then we would start at the bottom with very clear, and this is absolutely important, transparent democratic processes that say these people have been elected to look after this particular bit. The bit I'd like to see is Nairn and Alastair, and I'd like to see the right number of local councillors. I would like to see all our taxation that we pay in returned to us as a fair share, so we know what we're paying in and what we're getting back in terms of health or social care or housing or sewage or roads or whatever. And I would like to continue that model of these local councillors working very closely with the community council, and something like NICE as a social enterprise able to do things that they couldn't do to maximise what I would regard as the wealth of Nairn, the common good of Nairn, and the place worth concept from Sir Peter Housen about recycling as much of the money that we take in locally and creating as many local jobs and good jobs as we can. And I think if we start moving down that model of very sensible, really quite hard, pragmatic decision making, we've already seen a lot of signs that the people in there like this. They like to know what's happening, they're willing to take part, they're willing to help, they're willing to contribute their voluntary services, their input, their knowledge, their expertise. And that's the only model that I think is going to get us through this particular hard financial times in the future.
You touched earlier on NICE. What is NICE all about?
NICE came out of this wealth of good people in there who were trying very hard to find an answer to the problems we've been talking about, how Nairn could decide what it wanted, how it could best develop, how it could best look after itself. And it was very obvious to those of us who had been on the community councils that community councils had an important role, but there were things that they couldn't do by statutory rights, they were not allowed to do it. So the suggestion was, and it was taken up very enthusiastically, that we went into social enterprise, we went into becoming a charity that had the right to buy, that had the right to trade, that had the right to get access to the big lottery, all the charitable money. And all of that was on top of what the council and what the health board could provide. So it was all additional. It took a lot of time and effort to set the company up because it was a proper company and it's a proper charity. We produced our original vision statement, and it's quite interesting if you look through that how many of the buildings that we highlighted as being in a state of bad repair and nothing being done, have had something done. And I think that's again because we were emphasising and prioritising the need for Nairn to get these problems solved, to get a solution, which was a Nairn solution. And for example, it's ironic that the petrol station and the old community centre had been lying derelict for years, and suddenly there's money to do away with derelictions, so they're knocked down, and suddenly it looks much better.
You mentioned social enterprise. What is social enterprise all about?
Well, these community bodies have been set up so that they're not private businesses, they're statutorily controlled. Any profit that's made is ploughed back into the business and back into the Nairn common good. So for example, if you take the social work building, there's been much misunderstanding of us buying it, when in fact I think we already own it. And I say we, the people in Nairn already own it. We're talking about how much it would take to do it up. It has not been done up by the council. Nobody wants to buy it. Potentially the social enterprise company can raise up to $500,000, maybe $750,000 from the big lottery, for example, from other charities. So if nothing else, we go from a building that's in quite a bad state of repair to a building that's in excellent repair, and we can think of all sorts of uses for that. The monkey survey we did said quite clearly people near want a gateway. They want tourists to stop, they want tourists to stay, they want tourists to spend money. That takes you into this virtual cycle of more money being recycled in there and more jobs in there. So I think all these ideas are brewing up, and I think this is really quite an exciting time for Scotland, because a lot of what we're doing and a lot of the decisions that have been made have been looked at with a fair degree of envy from south of the border and from other places around the world as to how we go back to putting a real worth on communities, on individuals, on some of the old-fashioned, I've talked a lot in the past about the old parish concepts, but we should be helping each other. When it was a bad year, we put money aside, or we put money aside in good years for bad years because we knew they were coming. We used to pay for people to be sent away to university. We used to pay for people to be buried if they could pay for themselves. A lot of these are old Scottish roots. There's nothing new in what I'm saying, but we really need to go back to that and be very clear that we all understand what we're doing.